Greetings, and a warm welcome to another recording on our channel. In this space, we share accounts from individuals who have experienced near-death episodes. In this episode, we will delve into the narrative of Barbara Jean Lindsay. She recounts having passed away and witnessed the impending Great Reset that will unfold on our planet. If you haven't yet joined our subscribers, we invite you to subscribe right now. Don't forget to activate the notification bell to stay updated with every video release. Without further ado, let's listen to Barbara's account. Greetings, my name is Barbara Jean Lindsay, and over 30 years ago, in 1989, I found myself as a single mother of 3 children, managing my own business. I owned an art gallery and a design firm, and I led a full and satisfying life with few complaints. However, one day upon waking, I found myself surrounded by a mysterious and dense white fog. I wondered about its meaning and thought it might dissipate if I went back to sleep. But when I lay down again and woke up, the fog was still there. That's when I decided to seek help. That same night, I went to a healing center for women located in a church. Upon arrival, a woman approached and handed me an inhaler. She mentioned that during a meditation, she was instructed that someone would need it, and she believed I was that person. She was right. I accepted the inhaler and entered the place, but as soon as I did, I began to feel a sharp and intense pain in my chest, as if being pierced by thousands of blades. The pain was unbearable, and I could not withstand it. In fact, I ended up leaving my own body. At the church, mediums lined up, reading the energy of the environment. That night they saw me sitting in a chair, enveloped in a green aura. What followed was astonishing. Through me, a male entity with a commanding and loud voice began to express itself, announcing that it had come to exterminate me. When he said that, I felt my lungs burst. However, a second being emerged, something that anticipated much of the Marvel narratives. This happened in 1989 when Thor appeared with his lightning and destroyed the Egyptian entity that was attacking me. At that moment, I was rushed to the hospital, as my condition was critical, and I was losing oxygen in the 3rd dimension. When I detached from my body, I don't remember the physical sensations. All I know is that I found myself in a place of unbelievable beauty, filled with warm and undulating waters, which exuded love in a way I had never felt before. As a single mother, I had already experienced maternal and paternal love. But this was something transcendental, far beyond any previous experience. It was an ocean of liquid love, like dark water, which contained an unmatched intensity of love. At that moment, I became one with this love, and within it, I realized it was a living intelligence, unparalleled creativity. I was so enraptured by that experience that I wanted to stay immersed in that love forever. At that instant, I merged with the totality of existence, while realizing that I no longer had a physical body. The sensation was indescribable. How was this possible? Soon after, I found myself transported to a spaceship where I was seated in the center. The chair reminded me a bit of a dentist's chair with a reclining back and foot support. It was confusing, and I questioned my presence there. It was as if I was no longer in Sacramento, but at the same time, it was fascinating. To my left, an entity approached me. It was about 2.5 meters tall, had broad shoulders, and wore a white robe with a large hood. I could never see its face, but it communicated with me telepathically, saying it was the Guardian. So I started calling him the Guardian, and that's exactly what he represented. He informed me that his role was to mediate between me and other beings I was about to encounter. I agreed, and so did he. Then, with a gesture of his hand to the right, at the back of the ship, a huge glass window appeared. Behind that window, or mirror, or whatever it was, there were 7 to 10 beings, of different heights and shapes, but all had in common white cords and an imposing presence. Somehow, I felt that God had placed them there because they were special, and I couldn't help but joke about it. This experience marked me deeply, and they began a telepathic communication among themselves, reaching a consensus. Soon after, They transmitted to my interlocutor the message of what they wanted to show and inquire about. The next moment, they began to instruct me through. A remarkable experience unfolded before me. A holographic projection of our planet emerged, moving with imposing grace. Its stunning beauty captured my gaze as it approached, and I could feel a harmony between the pulsing of my heart and hers. Later, I had the privilege of meeting a First Nation leader, whose drumbeat resonated reminiscently with the ancestral rhythms of these peoples. That's when I understood the feminine nature of the earth, and the urgency to preserve it became evident. It was clear that we were neglecting our planet, a treasure in our galaxy, and that what happens to it reverberates in each of us. I realized our obligation to evolve and take on the role of conscious protectors, not only of ourselves, but also of our earthly home. This epiphany touched me deeply, revealing that, even as an organic gardener, I had not yet grasped the true magnificence and meaning of the earth. She is a celestial jewel to which we are intrinsically connected. I was overcome with intense remorse, and tears welled up in my eyes. After that moment, I left the ship and found myself floating over vast expanses of green and vibrant forests. Lost in time, this journey seemed like a balm for the heart, which at that time was facing the pains of a divorce, with no traces of human presence, only nature in its fullness. During this time, I felt a process of healing and deep reconnection. My guardian, whose face I never saw, always watched me expectantly, signaling that it was time to move on to the next stage. Then, I ascended an imposing staircase, bathed in alabaster light. At the apex, I found a floating temple in the cosmos, surrounded by stars. The temple, with its Greek columns forming a circle, welcomed me. And inside I found the same stately beings, dressed in sumptuous attire. 8 feet tall and broad-shouldered, their faces were veiled, but I could feel the energy emanating from their hands. As I extended my hand, I entered a field of synergy with them. In the center of the columns, another hologram of the earth materialized. They communicated to me, through telepathy, that they were the Watchers, charged with safeguarding the planet. They swore they would never let any harm befall the earth. This knowledge was so impactful that it stays with me to this day. They assured me that I could return whenever I wished. But reluctantly, I bid farewell to that experience. I was led to a celebration on a spaceship, adorned with a peculiar Victorian style, with a black and white checkered floor, and jazz music in the background. Hundreds of individuals, dressed in the most diverse costumes, circulated the environment. My guardian suggested that I should meet some people there. Throughout this time, I couldn't see my own body, but they could see me. Among the conversations, some figures stood out. The first was a waiter resembling Dives, serving drinks in small colored glass tubes, although I don't recall having drunk. Then, a peculiar figure emerged, resembling a teddy bear with Ewok features, wearing a monocle, and exuding the aura of a professor or academic. And so, the journey continued. He had never just studied humans, but was extremely eager to meet one, as he had never had that experience. So we greeted each other. He shook my hand, and from there, I walked towards the end of the corridor. At the far end of a vertical corridor, I came across a pink elephant wearing an elegant tuxedo. We exchanged glances, and it was at that moment that people usually ask, "What are you consuming?" or something similar. However, that was not the case. I was completely immersed in that moment and felt a desire to stay. I was informed that these entities were dignitaries, representatives of their respective planets. They collaborated in diplomacy to maintain interplanetary peace. I felt extremely touched and honored to be there. Then, the guardian intervened and said it was time to continue. I began to descend in a spiral, and my next experience was with a group of women dressed in colorful and elegant clothes, in shades of orange, turquoise, blue turquoise, and silk, adorned with stunning jewelry and long, loose hair. They spoke to me with a soft voice, almost like sirens, and told me that I needed to find my own tone to move forward. At first I hesitated, but then I began to practice, and to my surprise, they laughed at my effort. Finally, I discovered that my tone was deep and hoarse, while theirs was like a beautiful opera. At that moment, the guardian warned me that it was time to return. But I hesitated. He insisted, reminding me that I had 3 children, and suddenly, I became aware that it was time to return. Soon after, I found myself hovering above a room, watching my friend Cindy in meditation. Upon seeing the hospital bed, I noticed my presence there, although I did not immediately identify myself. Without alarm, I reasoned, "Ah, that's me." I reconciled with my physical appearance, despite finding myself a bit chubbier than I would like. Recognizing that I would need help to reoccupy my body, I asked for assistance from my protector. I was graced with the gift of white light, which caught me by surprise. At first, I felt slightly frustrated, but he clarified that understanding would come with time. As I was drawn back into my body, he held me momentarily to entrust me with a mission. I was called to be a messenger, and I readily accepted. As I said goodbye to that vision, I no longer saw my physical body. During the return, I thought of myself as a messenger of the arts, of love. I flooded every particle of my being with white light and awoke from a coma that lasted for 2.5 days, almost reaching 3 days. I removed the tubes that were in me and proclaimed my voracious appetite for nachos. Cindy, astonished, stood up as she saw me regain consciousness, as everyone feared the worst. I began to talk as if I had taken a brief nap, instead of having been in a coma. I learned that when we pass beyond this plane, we are never alone. We're welcomed and celebrated. This led me to a new perception. My psychic abilities were now fully active. I could foresee the future and was willing to share visions of the coming year with anyone interested. I was warned that great changes were approaching, including a war conflict, but this instilled hope in me. As if there was a general weariness of war and a desire for change, I hear people's voices and guide them to undo the conflict, although the details of this path are unknown to me. It seems that people gather in front of me on the streets, and suddenly, silence breaks. It is at that moment that a traumatic episode unfolds with the loss of innocent lives. In those moments, people declare that enough is enough, that it is necessary to find a new way to resolve differences beyond armed conflicts. I see them collaborating with governments in search of systemic reforms. The old system gives way to a new one, more structured, with ideals that prioritize peace over war. Nations adopt different forms of communication in the absence of conflicts. And that's where the challenge lies. How can we achieve this reality? Although it is uncharted territory, it is the right time for it. We are on the verge of entering the 5th dimension, which resonates with a much higher frequency. This implies that each of us must take on greater responsibility, without delegating this task to others. It is essential that everyone mobilizes and acts. This process will unfold over a period of 1 to 3 years, with special attention to the first year, 2024, which promises to be significant. I am immensely grateful for you listening to my account today. So, what is your impression of this extraordinary narrative? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's spread the hope that there is life beyond what our eyes can see.